Now we're on Daf Memvavam and Beis. Ushmami no mos be alma chosvin. This is a little bit more complicated. This is the third nafkamina that the Gemara, specifically Rava, is deriving from Rabbi Ami's interpretation of our Mishnah. And what does this mean when he says mos be alma chosvin? Language is very, very ambiguous. Okay, a man was Makadosh an issue with mos, and for some reason, the Kiddushin was not valid. Technical reason. Like we say in football, a technical foul. So now, the question is, does she have to return those mos? After all, he gave it to her for Kiddushin. The Kiddushin is not valid. Or do we say no? The mos are mos matan. This can be a major sugya. Like, for example, a man is Makadosh Achosa. It's not valid. She's an erva. Does she have to give him back the money? Or is it a gift? Here, in our case of the Mishnah, the way Rabbi Ami interprets the Mishnah, the mos achosmin, the mos have to go back to the Makadosh. She only has it as a pikana. But it was not a matana. She has to return it. So therefore, if a man is Makadosh an issue with many tamas, and he says Haret Mekadesh is bezu ubezu, the Kiddushin is not chal, as we said over and over again, until the Gemar Nesina, and now on a temporary basis, it's a pikada. And therefore, if she ate it beforehand, then it's a milva, and she cannot be Mekadesh. Itmar Makadosh is achoso, Rav Hamamos Chosrin. She has to return the money to the Makadesh. Shmuel Amar Mos Matan. Rav Amar Mos Chosrin. Odom Yodea Shein Kiddushin Tosva Choso. V'Gam Alim Nasan L'Shupakana. Both Rav and Shmuel agree fundamentally that a man knows that he can't be Makadesh his own sister. That's elementary knowledge. You don't have to be a rocket scientist for that. So why did he give her money? Obviously not for Kiddushin, but rather for a Pikadon. She has to return the money. That's Rav. Now we get to Shmuel. Oh, wait a second. Before we get to Shmuel, the Gemara asks, so give me some sort of psychological justification. Why did this guy say, I'm giving you for Kiddushin if he meant to give it to her as a Pikadon? Savalo Makabel. He thought that she wouldn't want the responsibility of taking the mos as a Pikadon. So he fooled her to accept the mos by saying, you know what, I'm giving you it for marriage. Also very strange. Shmuel Savar Mos Matana, she doesn't have to return the mos. This reminds me, by the way, of a story. One of the members of my family, close family, broke an engagement. And the question was, does the disappointed groom have rights to get back the ring, the diamond ring? It's a whole to do. Anyway, we're getting back to this. So what does Shmuel say? Exactly what Rav says. This guy's not a jerk. He's not an idiot. He's not an imbecile. He knows that you can't marry your own sister. But he didn't give it to her as a vikod. He gave it to her as a gift. Frek the Gemara again. Why did he say to her, here is a matana? He thought she'd be embarrassed. You know, it's like Sony Matanis Yichya. But if he gave her the same Kiddushin, she really meant the same Matanis, she won't be embarrassed. Again, the psychology here is a little bit foreign to our society. So the Gemara now, Moshe Ravina is going to raise an objection to Shmuel. From a Mishnah in Chala, and from now until the end of our daf, we're going to learn Masechet Chala. Moshe Ravina, we have a Mishnah Masechet Chala, Perek Beis Mishnah Hey, a mafresh chalosim in a kemach. Now, you cannot be mafresh truma or chala from kemach. It's got to be an isa. The Torah says reishis hariso secha. So it's only after you add the water and you do the lisha. And this is a Doraisa halacha, by the way. We'll see later on that the Kohen fooled himself into thinking that it's just the Torah wanted to save the Kohen the tircha of making an Isa, but if he decides he'll be mochel, he'll take the challah even from Kemach. No. This is a Doraisa halacha. So a man went ahead, and apparently he's ignorant, and he was mafresh challah from Kemach, and he gave the Kemach over to the Kohen. Ain't a challah. It's not challah. Reishis Harisal Sechem. This is not an Isa. Oh, but now the question is, does the Kohen have to return the Kemach? He's Gezel Biad Kohen. If the Kohen insists on keeping the Kemach for himself and he doesn't return it, then guess what? He's a Gaz. Ve'amai Gezel Biad Kohen. Name Adam Yodei Shem Afrishin Chalal Kemach. According to you, Shmuel, that you say that when a Makadosh and Achoso, he knew that the Kiddushin would not be valid, he gave it to her as a gift. Why not say the same thing here? He's not such an imbecile, the Mafresh. He knew very well that you can't be Mafresh Chalab and Finavina Kemach, and he wanted to give a gift to the Kohen. So why is the Kohen a Gazma? Why not sue him? It was L'Shem Matana. And the Gemara answers, Shiny Hosam did Nafik Churva Mineh. Okay, now Rabbi wrote at this point, there are two ways of going. We could literally spend a week on the next few lines in the Gemara, but it's Erev Chag, and it's a Daf Yomi, so we're going to just do what we have to do and not Lamahadrin. If you take a look at the art scroll, he's got an entire page trying to figure out this very, very long, complicated Rashi about what the minimum shear of Isa for the mitzvah of Challah. In any event, Zimnin de Islay lekoin pachos michamesh revoim kemach. The minimum amount of kemach, after which you add the water and you make the Isa, to be chayiv in Challah is chamesh revoim kemach. And here's where Rashi goes into a long, complicated calculation about how we came up with Chamesh Ruvan Kemach. Has to do with three different types of coins and currency. There's what's called midbarios, and then there's the Yushalmi. And then finally, there's the Bavli. I mean, again, this is whole Rashi, Dima Maskil, Chameshes, Revoim Kemach, and as I said, an entire page in the art school. But let's just say that the Kohen received from the Mafresh, meaning the Israel, less than 5 Revoim Kemach. Okay, so he has it now in his house, but it doesn't have the shear of challah. It's less than chamesh revoim. V'hai, now this person gives him kemach. He takes the extra kemach and he adds water, obviously, and then kneads the dough. And he thinks, the Kohen, that he commits sarev for the shear of challah, for the chiyuv of challah, that which he received from the Yisrael. Because sovereign is kana isasa. And then he figures, well, everything is okay. So I'm going to take a minute to just relocate. Hopefully we won't lose the internet connection. Give me a second here. Hi, Rabbi. You still there? Oh, Okay. So again, the Israel gave him a little extra kemach. And the Kohen did a lisha in his house, obviously, together with the kemach that he received from the Israel. Now what happens is he's got a shir challah, but the Kohen doesn't know that. Pasavar, he made a mistake and he thinks niskina yisoso. He doesn't have to be mafresh challah because the kemach that he had in his house before he received the extra kemach was already, was pachos mikashir. And the kemach that was given to him by Yisrael, he mistakenly thinks is challah. So, the less than 1 1/5, shir challah, that is poter michallah. And the additional kemach that he now receives is already misukon, because he thinks it was challah that was given to him by Yisrael. He might eat this isa when it's tevel, meaning before Afrash's challah, and even Kohanim are not allowed to eat an isa without Afrash's challah. It's tevel. So the Chachamim were afraid of this takola. Therefore, they were misaken. They made an established takon that the Kohen is got to return the kemach to Yisrael, so he won't come to a takola, thinking that obviously the kemach is not challah, and I'm sorry, that the kemach that he's receiving is already mesukan, it's already challah, and we're going to tell him return it. It's not challah. How could this Kohen make this mistake and assume that when the Yisrael gave him this kemach, it's already challah? You can't be mafresh challah from a kemach. You need a risol secha. So Gemara answers yodea ve'eni yodea. He knows, but he doesn't know everything. Yodea she'em mafresh challah min kemach. He knows that there's no challah min kemach, but eni yodea the sovar tamayu mishum tircha the kohen v'tircha the kohen achut. He thinks that this whole din that there's no challah min kemach is only a derabanan. It's not a doraisa, but the doraisa the chal is valid, it's chal. And the Rabbanim made a takana that, you know what, we don't want to impose too much on the Kohen. If he's going to start collecting, instead of an isa, he's going to start, which he could just bake, he's going to start collecting kemach. It's going to be a tircha gedol. So therefore, he thinks that if they made this takana on his behalf, on the Kohen's behalf, to alleviate his tircha, then he could say, I waive this takana, the efshi the takanas chacham. It was done on my behalf. I don't care about the tircha. Give me the kemach, and I'll go do what I have to do with the kemach, the tircha. Some people like to cook and bake. Give him kemach. He puts on the chef house. He likes to bake. So now, again, this becomes the more complicated part of the sugya. The Gemara is now holding that from the perspective of the Nosein, who gave the kemach, based on Shmuel, in the case of Makadosh HaChoso, he meant to give it to the Kohen as a gift. But because of this possible takola, therefore we're going to force the Kohen to give it back to the Israel. Frek the Gemara, you want to avoid a possible takola, that maybe the Kohen thinks that this chal is mesukon. I have another solution for you, and I'm going to prove that this solution is valid, and you don't have to force him to give back the challah. It was given to him as a gift, according to Shmuel. We're going to have a similar case in a Mishnah in Masechet Tmai Perkei, and we're going to see that there was another way of avoiding this chashash and this takola without having to force him to give back what he received. And that's called to be motzi chala mimokamach. Now, in order to understand the Mishnah in Tmai, we have to make a distinction between an otzitz nokuf and otzitz ein nokuf. Chuvas and Maisrus is a mitzvah shel chovas karka. And if the otzitz is nokuf, then that which grows from the otzitz, it's perforated, grows from the ground, the unique is from the ground, and therefore it's chayev midoraisa and chuvas and Maisrus. An otzitz she'eino nokuf, which is flat on the bottom, there's no unique from the karka, at least not directly, that's only the rabbanon. So what happened now? A man went ahead and he was mafresh truma min hanokuf al she'eino nokuf, and the nokuf is only the rabbanon, and it's not chayv in trumas and meiser, so it can't be used to be a afrosha on eino nokuf. I'm sorry. Let me get that again. Eino nakuv is only the rabbanon. Oh, so he was mafresh nakuv, which is doraisa on eino nakuv. Is a rezu truma. Okay, fine. But lo te'achel ad sheyotzi oleh truma u'masa mimokamach. Minat Torah, this hafrosh is not chal. Why? Because he was mafresh on peros that are not chayiv in truma. You can't be mafresh on peros that are not chayiv in truma and midoraisa if it's an eino nakuv and there's no unique from the karka. It's not chayiv in truma deoraisa. And therefore, on the deoraisa level, since this hafrosh truma is not valid, it's tevel gomel and it's osur b'achila. And the Mishnah says, you know what? We're going to solve that problem. We're going to tell him that he has to be motzi truma mimokum acher. So we see that the Rabbanan are not choshesh that the Kohen is going to come to a takola with this truma, and all they need is to tell him to be motzi truma mimokum acher. So therefore, if he was mafresh chalim and akemach in our case, we're going to say the same thing. Let the Kohen continue to own the gift that he got of the kemach, and we'll tell him that he has to be mafresh aleh chala mi isacheres. And the Gemara answers, betray money tzoyes, bechad money lo tzoyes. When does the Kohen accept and sort of the asimon falls down, he understands the takonos chachamim? That's in the case of two kelim. There were two atzitzit. He was mafresh from an otzitz nakuv on an otzitz she'eino nakuv. There's two kelim. So he understands that there's no chalos afrosha from one kli to another. But if he's being mafresh chalim and a kemach and everything is in one kli, the Kohen is not going to listen to the chachamim to be mitaking the kemach and mokomach. And therefore they required him to give back the kemach. Ibois ema. The Gemara now gives a different twist to Divrei Shmuel. We all Kohen makes its size. Even if it's one kli, the Kohen will listen. The Mishnah says that Gezel B'Yad Kohen has to return the kemach. That's for another reason. The chashash is not from the perspective of the recipient, namely the Kohen, but rather from the perspective of the donor, the giver, namely the Yisrael. Because some Balabais will mistakenly conclude that Niskana Yisaso v'Yasilu Mechel B'Teva. Wait a second. The Balabais is going to think that he was mafresh chala mina kemach, and that was a valid afrosha, and therefore he's going to eat the other kemach, which is really tevel. How can he possibly make that mistake? He knows that he can't be mafresh chala mina kemach. That's why we said according to Shmuel he gave it as a give. Where answers Yodeh for any Yodeh, he knows but he doesn't know. If the Kohen received and accepted his kemach, he accepted it as challah. And the whole reason why you can't be mafresh challah min ha-kemach is only because it's a hassle that you're imposing on the Kohen. But here the Kohen accepted it. Fact the Gemara, once again, I'm going to have the same problem that I had before. If you're telling me that there's a takol over here, then to heavy truma, it doesn't mean that literally, but it means let it stay in the hands of the Kohen. V'yachso v'yitro. And again, he'll be Torah mimakom acher, like we said, Mina Lotanan. We had the Mishnah in Tamai that we mentioned before, that if he was mafresh truma from peros that grew in an otzit she'enon akuv, which is not chayev in truma, it's only midivri chachamim, not min Torah, on an otzit's nakuf, which is chayev truma doraisa, harezu truma v'yachsa v'yitrom. So we see clearly that you can accept and validate the truma and just tell him he's got to be mafresh the second time. Now we're going to derive from that Mishnah that even in a case where the hafrosh of challah is not chal min Torah, the chachamim are not afraid that he's going to come to a takala. They'll just tell him that his parents are still tevel, and he has to be mafresh the second time. So in the case of mafresh chal min kemach, we'll tell him that the kemach belongs to the Kohen. He gave it as a gift, and the Yisrael will have to be mafresh a second hafrosh of challah when he prepares his Isa. And the Gemara answers, kimna betray money, tsois b'chad money lo tsois. We already explained that a person doesn't listen to the Chachamim unless they're two separate keli. But if it's one keli, we have to be chosh. He's not going to listen to the Yisrael. He's not going to be mafresh chal again a second time. In fact, the Gemara of lo tsois, is that really so that he won't listen to the Chachamim even in one keli? Vatnan, what about the Mishnah in the third parak of Trumas? Hatoren Kishos. Okay, now we're talking about what's called Roy Lachila Viena Roy Lachila. That's a whole other dimension of Truma. And Kishos, V'nimtza Mora, they were, how do you say Kishuim in English? No. I'm getting my English already. Squash. So the squash got very bitter, and it's not edible. Or alternatively, it was some sort of a melon, and it got spoiled. Rezu truma v'yachsa v'yitra. On the one hand, it's truma, and we validate the afrasha. But on the other hand, we require a second truma, a second afrasha. So we're going to derive for this that even in the case of Kli Echad, the Yisrael listens to the Chachamim, and they tell him, they instruct him that he has to go a second time around to be masak in the peiros. So why, in the case of mafresh chalam and akemach, are we going to be machai the Kohen to cough up and return the kemach to its bailim because of the chash shelo yitzais that he won't listen? More answer shani also the raisa truma mal yehi. And now the Gemara is going to quote Rabbi Eloi to prove that even in the case of these rotten kishos, or the melon that's spoiled, midoraisa, it's chal. How did Rabbi Eloi know to derive that conclusion? And therefore the whole din of Yachsa v'Yitrom is only D'Rabbanan. Tell Rabbi Eloi, minay l'torah min harala yofa. If a person gives peros mikul kolim in order to be mafresh on peros tovim v'shubachim shetrumasa truma shenemar v'lo tisu olav chet barimchem eschelma. You should avoid a sin when you're being mafresh chelma. Chelma means the meshubach, like we saw by Cain and Hevel, right? And therefore, it means that if he went ahead and he violated this chet, and he was mafresh for the meshubach min hagarua, he'll get a chet. It means that the hafrosh is chal. Because if you're going to tell me any kodesh the hafrosh is not chal, and the is chet lama, why do you call this a chet? We can't. From here we derive that Torah min harala yafet trumasa truma. So let's just say two things before we finish the daf for today, Memvav. In the case of Torah and Kishos, v'nimtzeis mora, then hafrosh is chal min Torah, and therefore the Kohen does not have to return the truma to the Yisrael. Because the Yisrael is not allowed to eat that truma, he's a zar. And mid'oraisa, the hafrosh is chal. And not only that, we're not choshish for a takola, that if he doesn't return the truma to the Yisrael, he's going to be mafresh al peirosav because minat Torah they're already misukanin. But in the case of mafresh chalim and a kemach, where the hafresh is not chal at all minat Torah, if the Kohen doesn't return it to the Yisrael, then we have to be choshesh that the Yisrael is not going to be mafresh chalim and a isa, and then he's going to eat an isa v'tem. And finally, the last point is that we already clarified that according to Rabbi Ami, when the Mishnah says that she was ocheles b'rishona, that refers to the Seifa, which is talking about a case of a man who's mekadosh with many tamras, and he said bezu, bezu, bezu. If she ate the first tamros before she finished receiving all the tamras, she's not mekudeshes unless the last tamra is worth a fruit. Okay, then we'll stop here.